Hey you, it's Saturday morning, about 6 o'clock. Um, I haven't done much stretching this morning, but I felt compelled to turn on the camera again. If you're new to the channel Trinity 4, um, thanks for stopping by and coming along. My name is David Mantle. There is a YouTube channel by that name, which is my old channel. I started it 2014 after I published a book about my military exploits in Angola. I didn't carry on with that channel because I was dragging I was dragging some military guys around with me, some people from that past, and I realized in 2016 when I was trying to unpack flat Earth for people that on YouTube, on Facebook, that the majority of people don't want to hear this stuff. The majority of people are much more content with you know sticking with some form of authority. Or it's funny because people who think that they're totally against authority are in some way welded to the ideas that the authority have given them or given us. Um, so I started up this new channel back in May, I think, last year, 2018. Partly because my friend Lee Mowat from Flat Earth British Sub, he said I bumped into him in a hospital, and he's like, "Why don't you start a channel, man?" We chatted for about 10 or 15 minutes. He was like, "Why don't you start a channel?" I'd been thinking to do that anyway, but it was like the final, or one of the final motivating pieces of the puzzle to get me started on this channel. So I called myself Trinity 4 because the nickname Trinity was given to me in the army. I'd forgotten about it until I wrote the book in 2014, 2013. I think I started the book in 2012, perhaps. But anyway, Trinity is also the three. And for me, the Trinity was stolen by, or is kind of, that term is very much held by Catholic Church and others. But I think the Trinity is you. We are the Trinity. We have the Trinity within us because the system is a Trinity system. This is something I was trying to talk about the other day, but I didn't get very far because the people I was talking to weren't interested in thrashing this out, because apparently this has been done and dusted. But for me, I feel that understanding that we are the Trinity, that we have both the positive and the negative polarity within us, as does the universe. But we also have this third force, this balancing force, this neutral force, this green energy, which we call the heart, we call earth and ether. There is this third force, or this third energy. And arguably it's creating a fourth, an arcing energy, a sort of bark, or a covering, a skin. And I'm happy to debate these things. And discuss these things. And of course, I set up this channel in a big way because I wanted to have conversations with people who were willing to kind of explore the ideas that were coming to my mind, and the world in which we live, which we truly live, and the mission that we're meant to be on. So I wanted to be part of that, and not just sit on the sofa and surf my way around it. So if we have the Trinity within us, we realize that we either have the power to be in the negative space. I call it the lower energies. It's the in the chakra system, it's the darker chakras, the earth chakras. or we can be in the higher space, or like you know, meditating all day long and sitting in an ashram somewhere in India, humming and imagining that you're going to make the world a better place by humming it all out. I love the idea of sitting in an ashram for a month. I think I could do that, but I think the idea that that's the need, that's the thing that changes this world, changes the system, changes the capitalism, changes the nature of politics, the nature of the system of indoctrination. No, 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 no. Those things are not going to change by sitting in an ashram. I think this is why I think my thoughts about this third trinity, the third aspect, the neutral, the balance, the heart. People talk about going to the heart space and being heart centered and earth centered and balanced and so on. And I think perhaps that's the trick, or that's the that's the thing for us to learn along this way, is to find that balance in ourselves. Because if we find a balance in our heart, then we will find then it infers the balance in earth, because they're the same word, will be achieved over time, perhaps. But some would suggest that there's a tipping point at which, when you've got enough hearts in balance, then it's enough to sort of balance out the positive and the negative. If you've seen any of my other presentations, then you'll know that I'm inferring that the feminine energy is the nine, blue energy, cold like the sky and so on, energy, and then in the lower, beneath the balanced heart or earth, you have the six energy, the male, masculine, dark or red energy, the what I would consider in electrical terms to be the electron, and I can't remember why, but so the negative energy in electrical is your electron, and L is hell, isn't it? And L is elephant, which apparently, like the ancients like to tell us, we're told. Okay, all information is controlled. So we're told by these wonderful maps and artworks and so on that we've been somehow managed to escape these incredible powers. That the Earth was so said to be sitting on tortoise and four elephants. Well, the L is electron, your negative energy, and your tortoise is a Taurus. So you're sitting on a negative Taurus, and we're focused, our whole world is focused on this negative Taurus, the 666. It's all about the 6 and the 9, the feminine. Perhaps why I'm sort of talking on this and sort of slightly talking out of turn, because people that I respect very greatly and whose information has transformed my understanding of how this world works, much respect to them. But I think a lot of them are saying, like, and I might be wrong on this, but I'm wanting to throw the conjecture out there for people to consider. But I'm saying that if you were the kind of people that realize that whilst you can keep the system in a state of imbalance, i.e., that either the 6, the lower energy, is supercharged, or the 9 becomes supercharged, and you can upscale the 9, then you've constantly got this balance. I sometimes think, is this what the Freemasons know, and that they have to keep the system in a state of flux, in a state of constantly doing this? Masculine, feminine, 69, 69, 69, all the time, in order for it to continue to exist in the material realm. Once you achieve that 3, that balance, the heart balance, when it's no longer fluctuating so much, it's a balanced system, does it then revert to something else? And they don't want for that revertation to happen? Yeah, I think about that. But I know that in my own sort of way of things, right? I come from a very much a six environment. I was brought up in South Africa, born in England, but raised in South Africa, which is a very male-dominated culture. The woman has her place, very powerful, but it's very much the beer and the braai, the meat and the rugby, and we had to play rugby at school, and national service was a part of my childhood. It was something I was expected to do, and went along and did, and so that's the kind of machoistic world, the six world that I come from. But I also see, as I say, that the ashram kind of, shawowdy wowdy, and I realize that that's a very important part of what we are, and it has to be, you have to have the nine in balance too, so it's not just about kicking the guys in the trousers and saying, oh, you guys are all meat eating thugs and stuff, like, or warring thugs. It's not about that. It's not also about saying that all the feminine leaning kind of guys, or this desire to have the woman atop. I think that's also an inversion or a perversion of what should simply be a balance. I think in the animal kingdom, you probably see a much better example of how each knows that they have a particular strength, a particular part to play. The men are not trying to be women, and the women are not trying to be men. And I don't mean that in a gender swapping way. I just mean that in a kind of egoistic, how we carry out our business way, in a Theresa May type example. So that's my thinking, is that we do want to find a balance. And as I said in my little podcast, my little thing yesterday, vlog yesterday, that I'm fascinated by the mud flood. I have been for some time, and Tartaria is a really interesting subject, and I would suggest that people really try and do a little bit of research on that, but not to be sort of drawn into this, like, as though it's the same as when you read about slavery. People read a version of slavery depending on where they come from and their background, and they read a version of slavery history, and they take from it what they will, whether you're a white guy or a Jewish guy or Slavic or a black guy, African or American black guy. You take your own kind of parts of that, and you go, oh, this part appeals to me, and this is what I'm going to stick with. And I think this is where it can be a little bit of a minefield. You might stay in that kind of dialectic of going, oh, well, I'm going to choose this part of the history, and I'm going to sort of address myself and others from that standpoint, rather than from a neutral standpoint. And where we are is right now. What we have is right now. All we have is right now. And whilst you continue to drag the wake of yesterday's funeral, or the wake of yesterday's movements in the ship, then you are obviously going to be having your eyes behind you, and rather than in the present. And I think this is where we get it wrong. That's why they love the football club idea. The clubs, the groups, and you join this club, become this club. This club is your means of identifying yourself with the world, and so on. Tricky one, isn't it? Because I really want to gather people together and say, hey, listen, we are one humanity, we are one love, we are one creation. But don't join me. Don't become a club with me. Don't become a them and us with me, which is what, unfortunately, Flat Earth and some of these other areas have the risk of becoming, or already are. And then they were always designed to be that. When they designed the ball Earth lie, and that took them hundreds and hundreds of years, I think, to perfect They never perfected it, but to improve on the model that they sold us, they took a long time to get to that point. When you think in terms of torus fields and you think about that we might be in a donut and how different the configuration of Earth might be and so on, they've gone to such extreme lengths to reshape our world, to hide the truth of what is out there and what else we're part of and so on. That it's obvious that when they designed the lie, they also designed the post-lie environment. And the post-lie environment continues to be the divide and conquer, the divide and frighten, and for that reason justify the need for government. I mean, I'll just give you two fantastic contemporary examples. Donald Trump, the Joker's wall to separate people from people. I mean, the people can't see this is like a West Germany, East Germany bullshit dialectic, surprisingly. And the other one is the Brexit bollocks. You know, that I know I just caught a newspaper thing yesterday and a headline, and it's like something about no deal or whatever. It's like, wow, they're still kicking this silly football around. And of course, while they continue to play the game, you need referees, right? You need a linesman to stand there, and the crowd are going to cheer or jeer for the linesman if he gets it right or gets it wrong. But they agree that he needs a linesman to make sure that the decisions are fair. Because they don't realize that the linesmen are all wearing black and white. They're all Freemasonic kind of, but at that level, they're all working to someone else's script. And they know that. And they've been bent over many times over the decades to get to that high level. So I think I had a thread about wanting us to think clever about how we proceed, because you see, I know what I've done with my family and friends over the last 3 years since I started talking openly about flat Earth, and and imagine that on a much larger scale, because I know that I was listening to a guy called Flat Earth Fokker yesterday, and he has had a similar journey to me, and so and I know other people have had the same kind of journey. I mean, I've told people about flat Earth all the way back in 2015 when I first discovered it and started going, shit, this might be real. And I told people then, and they still won't talk about it, and they still won't look at it. What are we going to do? We're going to fight them. We're going to go, okay, well, we're going to not talk to you, and you're going to continue to provide the negative energy for this system, and we're going to try and meditate and provide the kind of positive energy for the system. Yeah, do we conflate? Do we end up sort of doing the other thing, which is to kind of flip it, which is exactly what they wanted, was to have a pole shift and people go from the negative to the positive, bang, 100th monkey and all that. Well, maybe. But I'm still compelled to talk from my heart, which is, and say that, it seems to me that this is meant to be about finding that balance, that neutral place. And once we do that en masse, then people are going to just naturally start making better and better decisions. Disengagement from the system, healthier choices for themselves and for the the biosphere or the what would you call it? Apologies for that brain slowness there. I often think of the Eden Project in England. It's a humongous, great geodesic, I think they call it, shape with all these glass panes, basically, and it mimics what would be a typical sort of flat Earth dome idea. Remember this other toroidal idea that I'm talking about is more of a donut, and that if you think about how a donut is shaped, then that would mean that our current model of how the flat Earth might look, with a sort of glass bubble over the top, the one that Rob Skiber and all those others have been pushing since 2015. Um, uh, the Mark Sargent model, I suppose. This would be different. It would be that the dome would effectively sort of wrap itself around like like that. It would like a donut, really, and that would mean that in the north the roof was really low, as opposed to in the North Pole the roof being really high. Do you see that's an important distinction, because it helps us understand why weather might be so different at the north to the equatorus, the equator, the center of the torus field, or the joining of the torus field, the two torus fields. When I realized that's an important consideration, because if you think, we try and understand how the sun works and how the weathers work, and if you realize that shit, you might have a lot less roof in the north, as opposed to a very high roof in the north, then that does make for a, when you see that there's a cold body, positive energy on the top, and a hot body, negative energy on the bottom, then if you think that through, you'll realize why the weather patterns might be as they are. So this is important, and I won't unpack it anymore on this thing. I don't want to make it long-winded. It's for a specific conversation for those people who are interested in how there must be alternatives to us. Because, as I say, I think that when this system of ball Earth heliocentrism was designed, they always had a fallback to put for the point in the future, when they couldn't know when, perhaps, but they would know that eventually in the future this truth would out, and when it did out, they would need another diversion, another pen to keep the masses in. So, what do we do? What do the few of us who are kind of seeing this stuff do? Well, for me, the best that I can do, and as I hinted yesterday, I've been trying my damnedest to disengage from the system as much as I can. But some of my disengagement efforts have caused me so much grief, and I don't encourage you to take those sort of necessarily take those grief-making steps. Sometimes I think this system was made hard so that we would have to endure the difficulties in order to grow. I think I've said this before, perhaps, but if I had won the lottery, 150 million, 20 million, 10 million, 5 million pounds, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, a year ago, would I have made the strides, the growth, would I have been forced to take the steps that I've taken in my life to get to this point? Perhaps not. But that aside, I think that we do need to disengage from the system as a way of finding as a way of changing, because while people continue to kind of vote and go along with everything, then this system is going to continue to tighten itself up and continue to drag souls down with it. And as I say, I think that if we're in a sort of an energy system in which it's trying to create all these negative energy souls that fuel the system in a downward way, if you like, then that's what they're achieving, very much so. And it does feel like the antithesis to that would be for us to try and fuel it all up in a positive way, or go and live in ashrams. But I'm thinking, again, that's almost like running away from it and letting those who are left behind to fend for themselves and to do their own thing, and to good luck to you. And sometimes I have to admit, it does feel very appealing, to go and live in a forest somewhere and be away from the madding crowd and so on. And maybe that would be a nice thing to do for some time of the year. But certainly it seems right that just like when I went to war as a kid, for my country, well, I think we need to stand for humanity. Not obviously in a warlike way, because if you do that, then you're actually killing your own brother and sister, which is kind of defeating the point. So, we have to find this way of being those lights, and in that way draw people towards this truth so that they can brighten their own. Right. Well, I'll probably leave it at that for now, and I thank you for watching. One day I'll do like a thank yous video, because there's a lot of people who've given me information along the way, and to them I am deeply indebted. Some people have given me great information, and yet they can't see the ball earth lie. Surprising. Anyway, have a great weekend, I suppose, if you call it a weekend, and have a super Saturday and other day whenever you hear this. Yeah, thanks. Be well. Be well. And remember, it is actually meant to all be about a love. So there is no power other than you. I think you are. I forget that I'm live here, and there's people actually stop by. I need to say hello to those people. So, before I do that, what was I going to say? I don't know. I'm not a fan of the system, and I've gotten into a lot of trouble from the system, and, this and the rest. Sometimes I do wonder, though, if we aren't the system. And all the system does is designed to, the education system, the reward system, the way of everything is designed to take those people who are best suited for this kind of control. Just, we know that people are being pushed to the limit in every theater, and for a purpose, for a reason. That reason may be to bring about negative energy, to bring about karmic events, to bring about shift changes, alterations in the nature of this world that we live in. I think I suggested the other night on Richard Lopez show that we're mud flooding this world so we can raise the ground level. And there's a way of building this place up towards the heavens. The possibilities of why and how and what have you are staggering and beyond a comprehension of someone who's still sucking up the Hollywood drivel and the BBC crap. So that's that goes without saying. I think that's almost like that becomes like a given now. And the system isn't listening. The system could listen if it wanted to, or if it's listening where it wants to, and it's doing what it wants to do to minimize the damage, or manage the message, or whatever. And these are things in the sort of meta system that you and I, brothers and sisters, cannot control. That is obvious. You could stand naked, as I said the other day, you could stand naked in the Capitol building in America, and I actually have stood on the Capitol building in America once upon a time, but not naked. But I could have been, and no one would be listening except the police, who would happily throw you away for a few days and stuff. So They ain't listening, but you can listen to yourself, you can hear yourself, you can do yourself, you can change yourself, and then change things around you. And if this is an etheric field, as I think it is, it's an energetic field, an etheric kind of soup that we're in, then it is the case that my heart energy can reach the extent of the universe if it's powerful, if I'm enabling it to be that powerful. So I say to you that we are first and foremost compelled to work on ourselves. Don't get, and this is as much to me as it is to anyone else, lost in the kind of in the battle. Because it's great to be a heroic soldier and all of that sort of thing, but I'm not sure. I think that's an attractive way of distracting yourself from, finding that balance. The same is true with going off to an ashram for 6 months, living in a cave. I'm not saying you can't affect change from the cave, but I think we're brought into this modern world to be the change, and it seems to me the best place is where you are. So let me just, before I go, say hello to Rambo. Hey, Rambo Jammer. Much love to you, brother. You've been around a long time, I'm sure you used to be like very vocal on IPS's channel in the early days. I used to hear him saying your name because I was in with IPS. Not in with him. I was never in with him. He was always a little bit kind of on out. But I was very much up for the chat raids that we did in, was it 2015 or 2016 by the time we were doing those. We'd go in on those chat rooms, regular people chat rooms, like gamers or whatever, and go and hit them up with 20 or 30 flat earthers, hitting them with comments. Yeah, I think I was in on the first one with him, actually. But you, I think, have been around a long time, so it's love to you, brother. Hey, Amarok, gee, man, I just want to say something to you that your idea about the water, taking the water to Speaker's Corner, like the containers of water, and showing people that, spot on, brother. And that I haven't done anything about that is more shame on me, all right? So it's a good idea, and I'm glad to see you around. Numbering system. Hey, brother. Yeah, I'm going backwards through the comments. Oh, and here's my new friend, Q question stuff. I still think we're in a simulation. You know what? I mean, I'm willing to accept simulation theory. I'm willing to accept that, but I've just got to keep. For me, it's never about pinning myself down to say it is a simulation. I know, like when I had this powerful DMT trip in 2015, when I looked out into the world in front of me, it looked like a 2D kind of simulation game. It looked like that to me. It was crazy. So when I went into the DMT, I was immersed in this pool of love. No, pool is not the right word. Just surrounding of, the entire around me. Everything is this cube. I don't know why I say cube, but this kind of, this macrocosm. And I'm not saying I had a sense of being able to travel anywhere or any place in that, but, I'm only an entry-level DMT guy. I don't claim to have super knowledge on these things. Like a few years ago, I would have said, no way, no simulation. But now I'm definitely willing to kind of accept that possibility. And if that's true, then this is definitely a proving ground for people like you and me. And those of us who were somehow able to see this stuff. It's just a mystery to me, brothers and sisters, because I love humanity. And I, in 2015, thought, by the end of 2015, I was ready to start telling people about the flat earth. And I really thought that in a few months' time, this is going to be huge. Because, you know, you just need reasonable, thoughtful, intelligent people to kind of go, hold on, stop. This and this doesn't work. There's no measurable curvature. There's no this, and the globe this. You know, you just lay a few of those things out, and people will pay attention, not deride you, ridicule you, and write your wife letters to say that you've lost your mind. So, you know, what comes to mind is when I was in war in 1987, the bombs falling around me, the tanks firing upon me, the rocket-propelled grenades, the RPGs coming at me, and the bullets hitting my vehicle. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, it sounded like a popcorn machine. My vehicle. I'm talking, when I talk about the war, I hone in on one day, because on the 3rd of October in 1987, we had this humongous battle. Lasted all day long. And that I didn't die that day, or my crew didn't die, and in my squadron, one guy of the 36 of us that were on the front line died. Adrian. Some guys got quite badly injured, but that there was so much firepower, so much enemy firepower. There were many more against us than there were on my side. And that I didn't die in that day. And that all this, I mean, if you see a Hollywood movie and you go, how did that guy not die in that situation? And you go, well, how did I not die in the situation where I was exposed to all of these bombs going off around me, and the shrapnel missed me, and the this and the that, and you know, I won't go on about it, but I'll say that you do sometimes think, is it a simulation like that? How else could you have survived that? But it was intended that you survive it. Yeah. And it was intended that you find this information about who you are and what you are. You know, there's been days in the last few months, I'm like, why have we found this? What's the point of it all? Why are we here? Why have I thrown away my normal life and thrown away any, you know, like, you know, people don't want to give me work because they hear what I say, I think. And I don't want to go and work in the system because the system is so much at odds with what we are. So why have we been put in this predicament? And it's definitely not going to be to go back to war. The killing is the part of the test, I think. Or the screwing people over, fucking people over for a bit of money, a bit of profit, a bit of gain, and all of that sort of stuff. That's your test. And just because you found flat earth doesn't mean you're going to pass the test, I can assure you. You've got to keep doing the work. And, you know, for me, it's coming up for 4 years now since I started looking at flat earth, so not quite. 3 3/4. And I've learned so much more since then. And, you know, I've realized so many more things, and I think that this idea of finding a balance, being a balanced human, is part of the simulation, or part of the test. And in the way of that, then nothing matters. And that was what I got from the DMTQ. Nothing matters here. That's what I learned. So in a way, it's like, come here, learn what you got to learn. If you don't, you come back. You know, like in a player game, you know, you just recycle. It means like my little boy Alexander, you got to learn to stub your toe. He bloody fell down a few stairs yesterday and hurt his foot. You got to learn all this shit all over again, man. But hopefully you come to parents who are gonna, I don't know, it doesn't matter really. You know, wherever you come in, you get given all of these pressure points, these points to learn. And it's not about going back to war. It's about finding love. I'm sure of that. So hey, thanks for that. Hey, no, thank you, man. Remember I was saying. Oh, Rose Tinted, hi. Yeah. Good greetings. Yeah, greetings. Well, I will thank you for stopping by. Where's the proof or evidence of the simulation? Well, that's a fair point. I mean, question. Where's the proof of simulation theory? I don't know if you could answer that, Q, perhaps, but for me, it's just that what I saw in the when the DMT experience was like, well, it's definitely non-material. It's definitely non-material. But I mean, as I say, I'm not a huge. I don't. I've not really studied the simulation theory. I've sort of floated around that information and allowed it to float on me because I acknowledge that there are things that we can't know. And I don't know that necessarily the Freemasons know. Maybe they know. Maybe at the very very top of the top they know all of it. But it's also possible that they have to kind of make certain guesses and assumptions because they've never gotten all of it. I don't know. My friend who asked that question last about simulation theory is that at the moment of your death, there is a transition back to something. That definitely happens for me when I used to tell people about the DMT experience, but I didn't want to say DMT because people shut their the shutters come down when they think drug. I would say I had a near death experience because for me that was what it was like. I was in the army and firing a very big cannon inside of a turret. Every time that the bomb the every time you hit the gunner would push the switch and the cannon would ram back behind. It was sitting. You had the cannon was here next to you, and the recoil would fire back behind you, and this huge explosion would kick off inside of the turret, and it was like getting smacked in the face with a heavy towel. And I don't know if you've ever been really punched hard in the face, but everything rings. And it's that ringing that is the kind of start point. That's almost like the catalyst for your pineal gland to open, or for that process of dying to start. Because as you get struck by something, almost like an airbag, your body starts to go into that process of, is this going to happen? Am I going back? Because if you think about it, if you're in a car crash, the moment your head crumples in, you're already gone back. You've already you've returned to the source of where we come from. So, there is a nanosecond process that's occurring as you start to crumple up. And I think that that's what's happening in the DMT, is that whoosh, the pineal gland is ripped open as though you've had a death. Because for me, the first few seconds of the DMT trip were so frightening. My whole reality was ripped. My children, my family, everything was ripped away from me. Everything I cared about, all the material things, not house and car and things. I don't mean that. I mean the people, all the things that are me, my ego, I suppose, and all of that was taken away. And that's what happens in death. I mean, that's definitely the case. There's no ifs and buts about that. All the research I did after I had the DMT experience, trust me, I was an atheist. I didn't want for there to be a God. I was angry with the idea of God. So much war, so much killing. I'd seen it myself, so I was quite happy as a teenager, a young 12-year-old man, to discover that the Bible was talking about a flat earth, and my science teacher was saying that's nonsense. I was happy to discover that. I was happy to waft that under the young priest's nose, because it was just like you guys are so out of touch. What do you know? You think the earth is flat. I knew that as a teenager. So I wanted there to be no God. Well, in a way, I was tempting God. I was like, or creator. I use the term God, but I don't have any wedding to that word. It's just what people use, and I was brought up on it. But I didn't want for there to be that. Or I wanted to challenge this idea that there was a God. I wanted to like say, screw you, man. Prove yourself. You've got no. Well, I just happened to be on a trip to South Africa in 2015, and the DMT showed me how wrong I was. 5 minutes is all it took. 46 years old I was at the time. 5 minutes. All my Christopher Hitchens loving, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, Sam Smith is Sam, all of those boys, Lawrence Krauss, these were my heroes. Even that Koch, Brian Koch, these were my heroes. What's his name, the other one? The evolutionist. Oh, that British dude is like so... I don't even want to think of their name so much anymore. Much love to them, because they're only... I think they're ignorant. Or... No, they know. These cretins know. But they are part of the negative system of control, so... it is part of me. It is part of you. If you are out carousing with women, if you're a bloke, you're out carousing with women this weekend, for example, which, would it mean something that I might have been involved in? That's your lower energy, thing dominating that, what you do. And that's all that this is. This is our lower energy people. They know they're lying in the case of Cox and Krauss and so on. They know that, they're beyond, they might be teaching young students who absolutely, will go on and believe everything they say. They don't need to tell them that they're lying to them. But these guys know that they're deceiving us. What is their motive? I don't know, and won't go into it now. It's what I speculate about that right now. But I didn't want for there to be a creator, my friend. But there is, whether you like it or not. The nature of how it's set up, whether our creator, us, if we're the creator, then we set it up in some sort of way that it was a simulation that we, electronic simulation, and it's all actually happening inside of the point of a needle or something. I can't discount that. I have a much better preference for there to be a sort of physical universe. That this accretion disk, this creation disk that we live on, this land that we live on is absolutely real. But when you've had the DMT experience and everything's been dematerialized into waveform, you can't really hang on to that. But I wouldn't want to argue over it. I just would say you've got to allow, your mind has got to be elastic enough in this time and place to allow for any number of things. But for me, what is not up for discussion, what is not really up for debate is the idea that it's a heart-centered or love-centered system, because that was what I got when I went in on the DMT. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know anything about DMT, really. I'd seen the Spirit Molecule documentary, but that was no preparation. What I got was absolute love, total love, a love of a magnitude that is not hard, not possible to express in here, in this reality, in this simulation, whatever. And that's what we come from. We come from this great love, and we've come into this system of division and and I think that surely the mission is to get back to that love. So if we lose our energy, too much energy on trying to argue over things that are perhaps unknowable, I want to explore them. Don't get me wrong. I want to have discussion about them. I'm interested in, because the people around me, the people that are watching this kind of content are generally deep thinkers. So they are. It's these people whose ideas that are worth listening to, for sure. But by the way, I assume, I don't know if Q in your name is for the Q thing, QAnon. That was obviously PSYOP Central. But again, it's a good divisive tool, because people are squabbling over it. Is it real? Isn't it real? What part of it is real? What should we just? It's all distraction. Get back to you. Get back to focusing on you and this love thing and so on, and we'll work it out. All right. Richard Dawkins. Yes. Thank you very much. It was Richard Dawkins. Oh my God. This is 2014, by the way. 2014. I was all over that, man. That's what I spent 2014 doing. It's like all the Richard Dawkins and Stephen Hawkins and what's his name? Christopher Hitchens. What's in it for them, man? You gotta wonder. What's in it for them?